I will call the meeting to order. So thank you everyone for joining us. If I can just get you to join me in a sign of our faith, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We come together in hope from different community groups, answering the same call to service, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in gratitude for the trust placed in us, for the opportunity to serve, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in respect, aware of our diversity, willing to work for the good, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in awe of the wonder and beauty of each of God's children, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in God's name, and as we work together toward the same goal, each piece of the puzzle begins to fit neatly into place, creating a breathtaking picture of love, compassion, courage, and grace. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay, 1.2, can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda? And you can certainly put your microphone on for this one if it's easier than typing it in.
Diane will approve.
Diane?
Yeah.
Okay, and seconded? Rhonda's second, thank you. We have no presentations for this evening. So we'll move to item 3, which is actions to be taken, approval of the minutes from our April 27, 2020 meeting. Does anybody have any additions, deletions that need to be made? Okay, if not, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the April 27th meeting? Anyone? Okay, yeah, thanks, Tammy. Okay. So Tammy, okay, great. So I've got Tammy and Rick is a second, so thank you. I'm assuming that we're all in favor. Everyone's in favor. Okay, we are moving to number 4, which is declarations of conflict of interest. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest tonight? No, all good. Perfect. Okay, and now we get to a bit of the nuts and bolts of our evening. So we special education board policy review. And then we will jump into our review. Is there any questions at all? Oh, sorry, Maria, I missed it. Yep, my mistake. Business arising. Camilo is going to update us on the virtual IPRC process. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Maria. Actually, I'm going to call upon one of our consultants who's been spearheading this and communicating it to all of our certs throughout the system. Anita Bader. Anita, are you available? Are you online?
Sorry, I'm here.
No problem. Yeah, Anita, if you can just share where we stand today with the virtual IPRC, what we've done from a planning perspective, and kind of where we are today, and what our schools are doing with regard to virtual IPRCs. Thanks.
Sure. So what we've done is, as a group of consultants, we created an IPRC's time, distance and time of learning. And what we have done is, with the process, is we're looking at creating IPRCs for all of those students who typically would require an IPRC at the present time. So parents who have requested an IPRC meeting. The IPRC meeting will be done virtually. So a process was actually created. We can definitely share the process with you if you haven't seen it. And basically what it is the statement of decision will be shared virtually with the parents, as well as a student profile. We are still providing parents 10 days notice of the IPRC meeting. And then the IPRC statement of decision form will be sent to parents after our virtual IPRC meeting via email, and that would be encrypted. along with a student profile and a statement that parents agree with the IPRC with the specific identification and placement of their child. Any questions about that?
Thanks, Anita. Does anybody have any questions?
Through you, Madam Chair, we can also, Anita, the document that we sent out to the system outlining in more detail, we can send that to SEAC as well, just so that it gives you a little bit more detail. We weren't sure kind of the level of detail that to share tonight, but we can definitely share that the document that we sent to our certs across the system, outlining everything from the privacy perspective, encryption piece, to the Teams meeting piece.
That'd be perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll get Andrea Hughes to send that to SEAC in the next day or so.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And Jessica, you had your hands up. Do you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Anita. Just asking, did I hear it correctly? Is it just the requested IPRCs, or is it any new identification? Are they on hold?
So we are holding new IPRCs, so any students that are going into regional classes, as well as any existing IPRCs that need to be held because parents did not waive that process this school year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, was there any other questions on that? All good. Thanks, Anita. Maria, you wanted to chat about the Maxi letter?
Yes, please. So just on the business horizon schedule, I think the status needs to be updated. It did reflect in the minutes that the letter had been drafted and would be sent out for feedback. So that's an update. But as well, I just wanted to kind of share my perspective on that. And I don't know what the right answer is. I know you sort of commented last time that maybe this isn't the best time to send out such a letter. And I feel like we're in a bit of a ironic situation that at the time when ministry probably needs feedback from stakeholders more than anything is where at the time that it's more difficult to give it, or it's maybe not happening. So, and I also want to comment, Maxi, one of the things that was incorrect in some of the original letters was that Maxi wasn't meeting. So Maxi is actually meeting. They're just not posting anything on the website. And they've actually had extra meetings to talk about this whole current situation. And that's not a secret because the minister himself has tweeted about it. No details, of course, but he's tweeted about, I met with my advisory council today. So those meetings are happening. And what's really concerning to me is, and I have to say, the gifted exceptionality has a rep, but learning disabilities does not. And that's huge, right? And there's a seat for teachers. There's no teacher rep. There's a seat for EAs, and there's no EA rep. So these meetings are happening, but there are huge gaps in representation. So I feel like it's, almost a better time than any to send out that letter to maybe kind of point out that there are these big gaps. So I don't know. I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a bad idea. And maybe it's just sort of how the letter's drafted to kind of refer also to the current situation. So I just kind of wanted to share that. And I wasn't sure if everyone was aware of all those, where the vacancies are, because there's some pretty significant ones. I would think that EAs would have a lot to share with the ministry right now about our current situation. So that was just all I wanted to kind of put out there.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. And your comments are timely. I was actually on a Zoom meeting the other day with, it's a big acronym, PONDA, but it's essentially the Physicians of Ontario Neurodevelopmental Disorders advocacy group. And so one of their members is also on Maxi. She represents, I'm guessing from a medical perspective. And so we had a big conversation about mental health and support during COVID and what that looked like from a school perspective and a parent's perspective. And anyways, Maxi came up. And we were talking about all the vacancies that existed. And what was really interesting is we had a few patient and parent partners on the call who actually have been applying and we're hearing nothing at all back. So recognizing that they saw those vacancies there and trying to submit applications and not hearing back from Maxi at all. So, we had a conversation about what, perhaps why, what was going on with them. So, I do think it is timely. So thank you for bringing that up. I think maybe we take a look, Maria, at revamping that letter a little bit that you had done. And I mean, I know that at one point, and I've just had a lot going on, so I haven't checked back, but I know at one point there was even a trustee vacancy. And so, again, important voices that I think would be great to have at that table, especially with, like we said, everything going on. So I would be completely in favor, if we want to take a look at, maybe just revamping the letter a little bit, making it a little bit more applicable to what's happening right now, and maybe address the fact that there are people applying that aren't hearing back, or some of those other concerns we may have.
Yeah, I did type it into the chat box, and I see Rhonda has responded as well. But yeah, I know a couple people personally that have applied and never ever heard back. And then the seat got filled and they never heard anything back. And so there's people are wondering, is it lost in a black hole somewhere? The ministry takes forever to get around. Some of these vacancies, I mean, this is a problem that's been around for a long time, really, as I'm sure Rhonda knows as well. So yeah, I don't know what's going on over there, but and yeah, I think there's some, I don't remember now, there's some professional seats. I think there's a psychologist seat, I think. Yeah. I might know about that. There's some, medical professionals or whatnot. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, I think it's, so some people are having a voice, but there's some big gaps in there, I think.
Yeah. So, if you'd be, I know that we all have a lot on our plate, but, you took a great first crack at that letter. So, if you're amiable to it, I'd be happy to assist as well. And, maybe we can revamp that. Oh, Rhonda, your hand is up. My hand up is working.
Great. I'm glad to hear that, Brenda, or see that. I just have, is Joe Travato still the chair?
I thought he was, but I'm not sure. Is he?
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? He is, but I think his appointment has either expired or is expiring real soon.
So it would be. He's retired.
It's a 6-year maximum, and it was with John Wilhelm before, and I know we're clear. Joe Travato's clearly at the end of his time for sure. I'm surprised he's still there. He's been there a while. So there's someone else coming up, and that may change things a bit. I'm a little surprised with Joe because he seems to have a really good handle on things. I'm surprised that these positions are not being filled appropriately.
Well, I'm not sure. I think it's probably the ministry, right?
Okay.
And the other thing I was going to say is we've noticed too, because we've been watching this, like the gifted seat was empty for a while. And we've been watching this, and PAC on SEAC is always kind of interested too. It seems like sometimes people are still listed on there even after their date has come and gone. So the whole thing's just, I don't know. It's kind of a mess, but these meetings are happening. So again, there are some people that are having that opportunity to give feedback, but with big gaps. So it's an issue.
Yeah, it is. So if we want to add that as a to-do or a continued to-do, and you want to touch base on that, I'd be happy to do that, Maria.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I will have another look and see, and then I'm happy for any feedback.
Perfect. Okay, that sounds great. Sorry, let me just go to my chat and make sure I'm not missing anybody. Oliver's just saying that Dr. Sue Ball is the psychologist, and she continuously seeks input from the chiefs. Okay, well, that's good news. Perfect. I think the person that I know of is Nikki Stokes-Jones. She's the medical person that's on that committee with me. So she has, I mean, again, she's really jazzed by, being involved with Maxi, but she just wishes that some of those positions were filled. So it's perfect timing. Okay. So let's go. Andrea, for some reason, I can't get back to the agenda on the screen. Okay. Well, I believe that we had the Spec Ed plan review up next. So do we want to go ahead and continue that then with reviewing starting at page 24? Okay, great. So Andrea, do you have it up there sharing and I just can't see it for some reason? All I can see is Tammy's initials.
Hi, Brenda, there's nothing on the screen.
Okay, good. You never know with me, so thank you. It's been a long day. So Tammy, we are starting at page 24.
Sorry, Brenda, my computer's just a little slow. It's coming.
Don't worry about it, Andrea. It's all good.
It's just. All right, hold on. Is it coming up?
We can see, yeah, we can see your screen sharing. We're just not seeing their plan yet.
The plan's not there?
No, we can just see your document files.
I don't know what to do. It's not, okay, hold on. Okay, I'm going to try it again.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, we can see it now. Perfect.
Okay, I'll zoom it.
Okay, awesome. And you're still good to take notes, Andrea?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll open up the
I'll
chat
try
box.
like 150 maybe. Do you want it zoomed more?
I think that's good.
Okay.
Jessica, you had your hand up?
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought we weren't finished page 23 yet.
Do we want to go back?
Okay, that's page 23.
Okay, great.
Thank-
Was there, yeah,
Thank you.
was there any comments or questions or anything on this one?
Yes, may I?
Of course.
Okay. So in the second paragraph underneath the bullet where it says starting as early as November in grade 8 year,
Okay.
in that paragraph, it sounds like you can have that transition process anywhere after November, but that sentence or the paragraph also talks about course selections or option sheet, and those take place way before the winter time comes. And programs such as AP and IB options, they have deadlines in January and February. So I think I would like to recommend that we change the wording of the sentence, saying by a certain time instead of as early as November.
Okay. Is there feedback, any feedback from staff on that? Or from anybody?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I agree that I believe that language was probably created at a time when those option sheets were taking place at different times. Maybe if we can be a little bit more generic in that during the grade 8 year, because again, I don't have the exact timing of when those applications are due. I'd be reluctant to put a deadline or a specific date because, again, as we've witnessed this year, there are circumstances that sometimes prevent those specific deadlines. But I do believe if we philosophically believe that that transition meeting should take place at a certain point in the grade 8 year, and maybe if we create language that indicates it should happen before those option sheets are filled out, before any of those AP or IB applications are made, that way it avoids tying ourselves to a date, but it emphasizes the need for this meeting to take place before those dates, those pieces for a grade 8 going into grade 9 take place. That would be my recommendation.
That sounds great. If we can just have it in there, because we've heard from parents that they're not always given the opportunity to discuss the option sheet recommendations. So if we can have a sentence that states or stipulates that those discussions must take place prior to the option sheets are due.
Sure, we can insert that kind of language in there. Absolutely.
Anita, did you want to comment on that as well?
Sure. Thanks, Brenda. I just wanted to say that typically we do have our option sheets that are due prior to December in secondary. And as department heads, we do have transition meetings that do occur. It does vary, as Camilla was saying, based on the high schools and in their conversation with their elementary family of schools. So sometimes those conversations and those transition meetings may occur after the option sheets are done, which would be after December, right until, I would say, March, April.
Okay. And Maria, your hand is when we get to after this conversation?
Yes, it's on this page, but a separate point.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure I don't miss it. Okay, so are we good with? I'm just looking at, okay, so we'll make a note in there about that piece. Does that work, Jessica?
Yes, I do understand what Anita is saying. It doesn't have to be a full transition meeting that takes place prior to option sheets, but definitely those conversation and process has to begin prior to that.
Agree.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. Okay, Maria, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so my point is under the paragraph supporting the transition to or from a regional specialized class. Okay. And I feel like I've said this already, so I don't know if there was a similar comment on another page, or I'm just having some kind of weird deja vu, but okay, so it speaks to transitioning to or from a specialized class, and then it refers to, through this process, parents are invited to attend an open house at the respective schools. So that would be applicable when a student is transferring to a regional specialized class. But obviously that I don't think that's happening when we're transferring out of a regional specialized class back into a regular classroom. So I'm not sure what happens in those cases. So maybe some information around that, and maybe just to clarify, you know, there's two distinct things. There's coming into and coming out of. So that was my point there. And so then after that,
sorry, can I ask a clarifying? Yeah. And then I see your hand, Jody. So is the concern a little bit that we're not sure that they're always transferring from a class into a regular specialized class into a regular class?
More than it's a bit of a confusing statement, because the paragraph would seem to be about, you know, both situations, but that sentence is only to the one movement. But also I do wonder what kind of transition work is done when students are coming out of a regionalized special class back into a regular classroom, either because they've made a decision to change their placement option, or because the board is no longer offering a specialized class for them. So what is the board doing in those situations in terms of transition planning? Because that can be a pretty significant transition, right? And also just as well that the sentence is a little bit confusing, because it sounds like it applies to both, right? But you're not going to go to, I don't think we have open houses for regular classroom. Maybe we do, but does that clarify, or am I just confused?
Yeah, no, that clarifies. And so we do have, so there's a comment from Wendy that says we do host transition meetings out of as well. And then Jody, did you want to go ahead and comment?
Yeah, I was just actually going to mention what Wendy wrote down there, that you hear me? I'm having some real challenges with can you hear me?
We can, yeah, you're cutting out a little bit, but we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I've had trouble all day. So if I'll ask my colleagues if you can't hear me to pick up, but we do offer transition in support of those students that are transitioning out of a regional class for whatever reason, the various reasons that we have. We definitely offer those to our students. And then to your point, Maria, you're right. We don't have an open house if they're transitioning back to the regular classroom. In not all cases, but almost all cases, they would be going back to the school that they are familiar with. So we would offer transition meetings. And if there needs to be a visit, of course, that might be part of the transition plan, but we do have those meetings and support the students that.
Okay, thanks.
So,
thanks, Jody. Does that just reading here?
Can I have?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
So I guess, yeah, so if they're going back to their home school, but again, you know, when we have students that have been in gifted classes from grade 5 to 8, and I don't know if there's other I think there might be some other classes as well that are 5 to 8, but not in high school. So in those cases, they're definitely not going back. You know, there's a significant change. They're moving from elementary to secondary, from a specific type of class, and to a whole new school. But also, and I noticed as well, someone mentioned there's an IPRC. Yes, of course, there's an IPRC and transition meetings. But I guess the question is, like, transition planning. Like, how are we preparing these kids? That's one of the things about transitions, right? Preparing them for this change. So I don't think a meeting, does that enough? I don't know. I don't know what should be done, but I'm just wondering, what is that whole process for them? Because that's, again, that's a big, you know, when we read some of the comments in the gifted student survey, like kids went from being in a gifted class to being all of a sudden in the main population. And you could see from the comments that it was not always positive. Some of them wished they were back in a self-contained class, and some of them wish they had never been in one. So, you know, what are we doing to help them adjust?
Anita, did you want to comment?
Thank you, Brenda. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to comment about what our high schools do as well. They do provide transition visits for most of our Spec Ed grade 8 students that are taking GLE, and for those students that are attending life skills, and typically those students who are taking locally developed. So there are transition visits typically held in May at all of our high schools. So maybe instead of putting open house, we can also indicate that there are transition visits for some of our grade 8 students.
Can I also ask a question? Sorry, I don't want to jump ahead. Camilla, do you mind if I just ask a clarify or comment?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So I hear what you're saying, Maria, because, you know, a meeting I don't think captures it. And I know from personal experience that we've started the process early and we've required more than one meeting. So I'm just looking at it. Do we need to change the word? Oh, is there even a word in there about meeting? Like, do we need to elaborate more or comment more on meetings as required? Or I don't know. I hear what you're saying, and definitely a meeting doesn't capture that. And I think it's definitely more than one meeting, and there usually is, you know, a whole plan behind it, but I don't know how to capture that here. Camilla, maybe you wanted to jump in. Sorry, I went ahead of you there.
No, not a problem. I mean, if we look at the plan, it's under the heading supporting the transition to and from regional specialized classrooms. So it's supporting transitions. It doesn't. While I understand Maria's idea about a transition plan, it is really set up to indicate that there is a transition process of some kind. And as Anita indicated, for certain populations of our students, it involves a school visit. If it's going into a regional class, it does involve an open house. And also what we're wanting the plan to be is, again, a little bit open-ended to allow for some of our students who are, I'll use the gifted regional classes, the grade 5 to 8 classes, for those students that might need that visit during that transition planning meeting with parents, during that IPRC piece. I mean, as a former principal, I was involved many times where we would set up visits for individual students to a high school because of the need for that student to have that sense of understanding of what the school life would be like. So again, I think we want to be careful that we don't tie ourselves in too much detail, that it doesn't allow for this flexibility because the idea is for under this heading is about transition, is supporting transitions of our students to and from regional classes.
Do we need to maybe even then, because specifically to this open house comment, I mean, we're not sure that, do we even need to have that in there then? Could there just be something that says through this process, parents will be invited to participate in various meetings or like something like that? I just don't know if we're tripping on the open house piece and maybe take that out and change it to something else.
We could add, I'm sorry, Brenda, Go ahead. Which may include open houses, visits, and now again, in these times, utilizing technology, even when we're out of this COVID situation, it could involve also virtual visits as well.
Right.
Again, utilizing technology, especially when the regional classroom and students are having to travel longer distances. Again, I think we might. I would rather we not tie ourselves to specific examples and maybe give a broad range of types of, if we want to call them visits, open houses, virtual visits. So again, it gives schools and families that flexibility to choose what's right for their child.
Okay. Thanks, Camilo. Maria, you had a follow-up?
Yes, I did. So I guess one issue is how is it described here? So that's, so I think we've talked about that, and I think there's been some good ideas there. But fundamentally for me, it's going back to what does this process look like? And I'm not hearing in the answers, I'm not hearing what I want to hear, and what I think is needed, because I'm hearing, yes, we plan visits for kids that are in GLE, locally developed, and life skills, as I believe what I heard. So again, we're leaving out a significant population that has a disruption in placement options to them. And again, I hope that we're doing something with those survey results. And we did, like I said, there were students who said they wish they had never been in self-contained, and that gets interpreted too. Some people see that and they think that's just not a good placement option because it's stigmatizing and it separates them from the population, and et cetera, et cetera. But I know that those classes are really very impactful for a lot of students. So my question is, where's the breakdown? Maybe the breakdown is in transitioning them from those classes back into the regular class. And it seems to me that was a bit traumatic for some kids. And that doesn't mean that their experience in grade 5 to 8 was a bad one or that it shouldn't have happened. I think it means something's not happening that should be to prepare them for that adjustment. So that's a bigger conversation than I think this process is about, but it has highlighted it for me. So if we can park that somewhere for further consideration, conversation, etc. I think it's a key point. And that's
Thanks, Maria.
what I had to share.
Okay, thanks. Wendy, Camilo, did you want to respond? And if not, I've got Wendy in the queue.
No, and I'm sorry, Wendy, I'm just going to jump in for 1 second. And Maria, we do hear you, and I agree that we need to be responsive to what our students have told us in different ways that they have over the last couple of years in those surveys. again, the language already in the plan talks about a student-specific plan to facilitate that transition. I agree with you. I think we need to maybe be more broad in what parents could ask for in that plan, including visits, including, again, not every school has open houses for, let's say, a regular classroom open house, but we could, as part of that plan, even though it's not articulated in our plan, school visits are part of the range of activities that you could add to a plan in order to make to facilitate a student from a regional class back into a non-regional class. I really do think that the structure is there already in the language. It talks about creating an individualized plan of that transition. I think what you're asking for, is maybe a little bit more examples of what that plan could look like in allowing for students and families to visit the different facilities, I think. And Wendy, do you have any further comments?
Yeah, so my comment is more general, and I appreciate everything you've said, Camilla, because you've captured some of my thoughts as well. But I guess in a more overarching way, I was thinking that the plan is certainly not meant to be exhaustive. Our whole plan here, our guide, which I think someone said last week, it's probably a better descriptor as a guide. It won't capture every salient detail of what we do because it would be really a very big document. It would probably overwhelm our average parent who accesses this. And it would also, it could put us into a bit of a corner in a sense, because if we make it really, really detailed, we'll be updating it. It could quickly be out of date overall year to year, because there's just so much in special education now. So I really appreciate all of the comments that have been made, and we can absolutely add language, but trying still to keep it open enough that we're speaking to a range of things and not, sort of tacking ourselves down to very, very specific details. I can tell you, just as an example, in this virtual environment, our department heads have done everything from, they've got videos they've shared to one-on-one meetings with certain families, group meetings, those kinds of things. We do a lot of different things for different students depending on their needs, and we could never sort of capture all of those details. So just in a more general way, I think we need to just be mindful that it won't be exhaustive.
Thanks, Wendy. Dan, Maria, I saw your request for comment. I just had Dan had his hand up. So Dan, if you want to go ahead.
Just very quick. I think we're all aware that there is, what Maria alluded to, there is a real issue with gifted classes transitioning to regular ones, gifted students transitioning regular on top of the high school change, where they can have, I guess, issues with adapting to a more rigorous and structured environment and the responsibilities, I guess, that they have to take on. And maybe I think in this plan particularly, it's mentioning that addressing the social emotional needs and so on. I'm not sure if there is a transition plan that is developed for each student where you can address like a guide on what needs to be the focus on the transition, whether checking whether the I guess the schedule is perfectly okay, or how the adapting into the new environment goes on, and what should be the focus for the new staff that will be in charge of that kid, right? That's basically what if there is a plan. I think that should be mentioned here.
Thanks, Dan. Maria, you had another comment?
Yeah, sorry, I'll try and keep it quick. I hear what Wendy's saying, and I agree, and that's why I said I think this goes beyond the plan itself. And I guess what's concerning me a little bit was that even in response to the question, it sort of highlighted the gap that I think is there. So that was one thing. And then just Camilla talked about, if parents are asking for an open house or whatever. But I want to, and this is kind of general point, I think we have to be careful to not be expecting parents to drive this, because parents don't have a clue until it's too late. So I'd ask, that the staff be sort of giving, as it was also mentioned, sort of giving out these options and maybe suggesting that what has worked well in the past for other students, so that parents can sort of, they might never occur to them, right? What needs to be done. They don't know. We're learning as we go. And I'm kind of here because I learned as I went, and there's all these things I wish I knew throughout the process. So I'm hoping to kind of make it better for people that are coming behind. So that's just what I wanted to share. And thank you, Dan, also for the comments, because I think it's an area that could use a little bit more work. So that's it.
So is it something then that we maybe, make some suggested changes here, and then, there's no reason why we can't have a more fulsome discussion about this particular situation, at another time. We can have, I know that we are going to be doing some presentations. Well, we were hoping to do some presentations on transitions. I don't know what that looks like with everything going on, but I still think there's opportunity for us to discuss the transition piece more fulsome at the table. So it's probably been a good conversation to have. Deborah, I see your hand up. If you want to go ahead.
Sorry about that. No, I was really just agreeing with Maria's point there about parents. She's right. A lot of the times we are just learning along the way. And a lot of times what I've encountered with a lot of the parents who reach out to me, or parents that I know, is they're apprehensive to ask for anything at the schools, whether it be the teachers or even the principal, because they're often nervous to step on toes, to be quite honest. So I think Maria had a really good point there of we can't really assume that parents are going to know they can do these things and kind of drive the situation of reaching out to the teachers or staff, because they might not always do so.
So I think that we probably had, enough consensus that this is a good future topic. And, again, we know transition is so important, whether it's year to year, program to program, school to school, and it's not the first time it's come up. So I definitely think that it warrants, a future topic. Let's have some conversation. We can take a look at, possible ways that SEAC can support some families. Do we need to create or work with the team for a specific transition resource? So I definitely think that we should put that as a future initiative for sure. So I'll make a note of that when we do our planning for our SEAC agendas. Camilla, you have your hand up?
And I'm sorry,
no,
sure. Just one last. Again, my point wasn't that parents should be asking for open houses or asking for tours. What my point was, in our plan, it talks about how it's student specific. And so parents and schools and teachers and certs would be sitting down and talking about what their child needs for that transition, to make their transition smoother, to make it less of a stress on them. And again, it would be a dialogue. And so hopefully, parents would be adding to that dialogue, not leading that dialogue, but adding to it along with the school. That's all I meant, was that we do want to try and work together with parents. The whole point of this plan is to have a plan that is being worked on by both families and schools. And the language is already in that plan that's how it's intended to be. Now, the plan, I think when it was originally written, gave an example of an open house, but that was just one example. There's lots of different transitions. Our grade 8s in all of our schools have many types of visits to secondary schools throughout the year. And that includes all of our students, all different exceptionalities. So a lot of our high schools do a wonderful job of inviting elementary school grade 8s. In fact, a lot of them begin invitations to grade 7s as well, in that more general piece of transition. So again, I just want to be clear that I wasn't suggesting that parents would have to ask for these tours or for these open houses, only that parents would be part of that conversation to know what's best for their children.
Great, thanks, Camilo. I'm just being, I do not want to shut down any conversations. These are all important. I'm just being conscientious of the time, and I'm wondering, are we good with this page? Are we ready to go to the next one, or was there anything else that we wanted to cover off on here? Good, thumbs up. Okay. So on to the next page. So page 24. Any comments on this page? Questions? Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Sorry, I was a proofreader in a former life.
Okay.
Just at the bottom of page 23, I think that's the header for the next page. There should be probably a page break there where it starts Ministry of Education, Policy Program, etc. And I think probably if you shift things around, pages 24 to 26 could probably fit in 2 pages. There's just some page break issues, that's all.
Okay, so we were at 24. So there's no comments for 24 other than the formatting we had for 23. Was there any comments on page 25 at all? Six. Okay, keep going down. Thanks, Andrea. Page 27. Again, some more transition. Yeah, Maria, go ahead.
Sorry, again, it's more of just a formatting thing, but that last paragraph on page 27, it doesn't fit. And I have a feeling it's maybe left over from a previous version or something. It talks about the policy and resource guide. And I think that information is found elsewhere. So just maybe mark that to have a look at that.
Yep, Jody says she noticed the same thing too. Okay, perfect. I'm usually a grammar police. I'm not always a formatting police. Okay, so keep going. Sorry, I hope I'm not rushing you, Andrea. Page 28. Yeah, Maria, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, so I think these roles and responsibilities, I think they come from the ministry documents.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a little bit of differences. I don't know if it's just from an older version, but there were a couple of things that I felt were substantively missing or different. So under Ministry of Education, on the second bullet, it states, so the Ministry of Education ensures that school boards provide, et cetera, et cetera. The ministry document actually says that the Ministry of Education requires through the Education Act that school boards provide, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that is a really important distinction in wording because the ministry doesn't actually ensure anything. They kind of are hands off. They provide the regulation, the policies, and all those other things that are mentioned throughout here. And they expect school boards to comply, basically. So I think that wording is important to change. And I think that's, yeah, I think, and the only other thing on that page is it says the district school board or school authority. So again, that's from ministry document, but I don't think we need to say school authority because we are a district school board, but that's not really a big deal. And then I had some on the other pages, but I don't know if anyone else has anything on this page. Looks like Paul has
Yeah, I'm gonna
hand
get
up,
Paul's
so,
hand. My
yeah.
only other comment, Maria, would be that maybe what we do is we take a look, totally, understand what you're saying. I'm wondering if we just take a look and see what, because I'm assuming that this has been taken, as we said, directly from, a ministry document. So I'm wondering if we can just cross-reference with that document to just
Well,
see. I mean,
yeah.
if they're saying that, and I totally get it, as far as the ministry's role with ensuring things. But if they're, if that's where they're, if that's where they're saying that that's their rule, I just wonder if we take it out or not, or change
Sorry.
that word.
Can I
Yeah.
clarify that?
Yeah.
Because, yeah, so what I'm saying is I did compare this
Okay.
to the current document,
Okay.
and there are several cases where our wording is off by a little bit, but it's not significant. And I would just leave it to staff if they want to make that comparison and make the changes.
Perfect.
But that is one. So I'm quoting to you, unless I did this a couple weeks ago, but I'm pretty sure I took my wording and I, of course, check what the ministry says.
Yeah.
The wording, I believe, in the ministry document says the Ministry of Education requires through the Education Act that school boards, etc. So I think
Okay.
that's one case where I would say we should be consistent with the ministry because that wording we have in there means something different.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if we can cross-reference that, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Camilo. Paul, you had your hand up?
Yes, and I'm not sure whether it's the right time to bring it up or not, but it's about the only time I can see. It's the whole relationship with the CAS.
Is it about this page? Like, is it?
Well, it's roles and responsibilities, and they talk about all the different roles and responsibilities, and through the whole document. And maybe I'll bring it up later. There's really, I see nothing that talks about the relationship with CAS, and my understanding, as limited as it is, there's a lot of referrals and a lot of interaction between CAS and the school board, and what's the place for the CAS psychologist, the CAS social worker, and I'm just wondering, it may be handled somewhere else, and maybe it doesn't belong here, but it just, in fact, the first time we read this through, I know it's been added since then, the CAS wasn't even put on, wasn't even listed as a referring agency later on page 54 or whatever.
So when you say that you're not sure if it's there further on in the document, have you taken a look to see if there is reference to the CAS?
Yes, they do get mentioned now.
Okay.
But that's I maybe I'm wrong, but I would expect that there's a lot of questions that I know, being on the CAS board, that the relationship between the schools and the CAS was not always the greatest, and I believe that there's quite a few wards. So I'm not talking about kids children under investigation or families under investigation, but a lot of wards, a lot of foster parents, a lot of group homes, and I just don't see anything in the plan whatsoever that talks about what their place is.
So they may not be doing it, and I'm just supposing that they may not be doing it specific to CAS, and rather CAS is probably, like some of our other community partners. So certainly if there's a piece there that reflects on the Spec Ed piece, I would imagine that we would address that, but I don't know that there would be a specific area just for CAS, but I could be completely wrong. Camilo, do you want to respond on that before I go to Jessica Jessica, you're page 29. Sorry, go ahead, Camilo.
I'll try to, and I'm not sure if Patricia Codner is on this call. Patricia Codner is our chief of social work, and I know that she is our liaison with CAS as well. Paul, what we've done in the plan is we've outlined all the different community partners that support our schools, support our students and families in the community, and CAS is one of them. We typically we don't, from my understanding, and I might be proven wrong, we don't go into detail in any of those organizations and what they offer and what they can do. Again, because this is our special education plan. And again, I would welcome anyone else on my team to maybe further comment. If again, the plan is for families to recognize that there are community agencies out there that can support them, but it wouldn't be our responsibility to describe the work that those agencies do, or the support, the resources that they have to support families. Again, my guess is for a couple of reasons. Number one, it might not be our place. Number two, our plan is, already for the work that we do at times gets outdated. And if we were to outline all the other community agencies and the work that they do, we'd probably spend all year updating it and having to update it because things change, as you would know. Patricia, do you have anything further on that?
Yes, through the chair. Good evening, everyone. Further to what Camilla has indicated, in terms of CAS and our partnership, it's a global approach in terms of all children in our system. So it's not specific to special education, but as a caveat over the entire board with regards to our mandate in ensuring all our children are safe and well. And we do have a very strong relationship with CAS. In fact, I'm not sure if you're aware, but many of our schools, we have about 6 or 7 schools that CAS workers actually have a base in order to strengthen their community partnership in providing services to that family school or to the community in which they're working. It's usually communities where there's a higher need for CAS support because of various reasons with regards to child welfare. And so we do have a strong relationship with CAS. We do consult with them on a regular basis. We have processes in place. We have letters addressing during this time of the pandemic, alerting families to what resources are available through CAS. But just on an average general day, CAS is very much in our conversation in many platforms, especially from the front line with staff, visually seeing a child to a child's disclosure, especially the vulnerable sector. As we're now talking about special education, our staff has to be very keen on recognizing bruising things on a child that may not seem accidental, if you want to use that word, or just typical childhood injuries. And there is process in place to do consultations. And then if we're not sure, we can do an inquiry with CAS and they will further guide us. So I would say we do have a global relationship with CAS for the entire board, but even particularly it's interwoven into the work that we do in special education. Are there any questions or comments?
Thanks, Patricia. Is there anything else for this page? I'll go to the next page. Oh, sorry, Maria, go ahead.
Sorry, just one other thing, and I appreciate that staff's going to take this back and compare it back to the ministry document, but I just had 2 things that I wanted to make sure were noted. Under Special Education Advisory Committee, there is 1 bullet missing, which again, I'm comparing to the ministry document, but also comparing to the regulation. So one of the duties of SEAC is to review the financial statements of the board as they relate to special education. So it's not just the budget, it's the financial statements. And the other thing that I noticed in the ministry guide, they have they outline the roles and responsibilities of the early childhood educator. And I'm guessing that's probably something newish since the full day kindergarten maybe came into place. So that probably should be added. And I think that speaks to the importance of the early intervention in special education. So those are just my last 2 things that I found that I thought were really key when comparing back to the ministry document. And that's it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Maria. So we've got that note. Awesome. Okay, do we want to go to the next page? Oh, sorry, Maria, can you repeat the last point for Andrea?
Sorry, I assume that was the early childhood educator, that role and responsibility is missing from our version here. And I just threw in my comment that I think that speaks to the importance of the early intervention in the special education process. So I think that's a key role.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I got you, Jessica. Sorry, I just wanted to finish that off so we didn't lose it. Are you good, Andrea? Oh, she's typing there. Okay, Jessica, do you want to go ahead?
Okay, nothing major, as it is taken from the ministry guide. Just for the special education teacher section on page 29, I know that the school board has 2 types of special education teachers, so I don't know if we should update the heading of this section to SETN certs. I don't know what the thoughts are from the staff.
Camilla, do you want to comment, or Wendy?
Sure, I'll start, and Wendy, if you want to add anything. So just so for my understanding, Jessica, you're indicating, you're asking, should we have a different heading for our special education, what we call SET, special education teacher, not resource teacher.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Teachers,
but
okay.
There is no separate section for search here either. So I think this ministry wording encompasses both types of special education teachers. So I don't know how you feel about combining the role here together or separating them, but I think they both need to be mentioned.
Yeah, I think in theory, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think we will again, I don't know the genesis of this plan, where it came from, that language. I'm wondering if it's just taken straight from the regulation. I know it quotes the regulation, but I think we can probably do a better job at indicating the 2 types of special education teachers: the resource teacher, the CERT, and the SET, where they are special education teachers who are teachers in our regional classes, for sure. And we can make that change. Andrew, have you made a note of that?
She sure did.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so page 30. Okay, next, so 31. Any questions on this one? Sorry, what was that, Jessica? I just saw your note there. I wasn't sure what that meant.
Sorry, I didn't mean to waste time here. I was just trying to tell Maria that those of us who are outside of the Halton Catholic don't have some of the features.
Okay. No waste of time at all. Okay, I know that in the past we've spent a little bit of time on these exceptionalities, but I think that I think over time they've gotten a little bit more robust and a little bit more detailed. Okay, so we'll keep going. So page 32, just a continuation of the definitions, exceptionalities. Okay, keep going. Look at us just plowing through this. Okay. Provincial and demonstrated. Okay. I know, Maria. I'm relishing in these pages that were, but we've done our work on these before, so it's not like it hasn't been done. Jessica, yep, page 34, go ahead.
Sorry to slow down again.
No, it's all
just
good.
just the formatting suggestion. So starting on page 34, we're looking at different types of provincial and demonstration schools. Now, so the description begins with Ross McDonald and then the School for the Deaf. And then all of a sudden it switches over to provincial school contacts. Then the third type of provincial school, which is the Trillium School, appears on page 37. So I think if we can just bring over the Trillium School just under the other two schools, so that it's more streamlined.
Okay. Awesome, Andrea. Okay, perfect. Yeah, Maria, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I'm a bit slow sometimes with the unmuting. Okay, just under the provincial schools and provincial demonstration schools. So I think it's the 5th bullet that says preschool home visiting services for students who are deaf or deaf-blind. So I guess it's a question. What about students that are just blind? And the next bullet does talk about deaf-blind or deaf-blind. So I don't know if it's just missing from that bullet, or do those students not get those same services if they're only blind?
No, they would get the same services. Sorry, Brenda, Denise Colley here through
That's
you.
okay, Denise.
Here. Yeah, the students who are blind would get the same services as well from Ross McDonald.
Okay, so maybe that just needs to be added then to that bullet.
So I think it says, I think when it's saying visually impaired, that's referring to a student who's blind and deaf-blind.
Okay, I'm looking at a different bullet.
Okay.
So it's under provincial schools and provincial demonstration schools near the top of the page. This is page 34.
Yeah.
And it's the 5th bullet. It says provide preschool home visiting services for students who are deaf or deaf-blind.
Okay, we'll add in blind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Rhonda, you had your hand up?
Yeah, that was just my comment that deaf, deaf-blind, blind all get home visiting services from provincial schools. But we do need to include the word, I agree, the word blind solely.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maria.
Okay. I'll let you know if I need you to edit some of my blogs, Maria.
You can't hear me because my microphone's muting, but I was laughing.
Okay, so. That's a quick one pager, Camilla.
There's a lot of blanks.
Double space. Okay, where are we at here? What page are we on here? Any questions at all about interventions? We're on page 40. Okay, assessment, evaluation, recording, page 41.
Sorry, I just had a quick comment on page 41.
Yep.
Sorry, with the speed we're going, I don't think I can type hand up fast enough. Just at the top there, point 8, I believe it's 30 school days after the IPRC. It just says not later than 30 days. I would prefer 30 days to 30 school days, but I don't think that's what's happening, so.
Okay, any comments on the assessments? Yeah, Maria, go ahead.
So just above the chart there, it says provision of educational programming may include the formal identification and placement according to Reg 18198, preparation of an individual education plan, and ongoing consultation. So I'm wondering if this would be maybe somewhere to kind of elaborate about that some students are getting IEPs but not formally identified, just to kind of explain that a little bit more. It says they may include the formal identification placement, but I guess in some cases they may not. So I didn't know if there was an opportunity maybe to expand on that. And then just my other thing under qualifications for psycho ed assessments, it says master's degree minimum with an asterisk. I couldn't find where that asterisk was pointing to, so that's it.
Oliver, can you speak to the question around the master's degree with the asterisks?
Good evening. I'm just looking at it. That whole sentence is not very good. The minimum degree is a master's degree or equivalent. We have currently a couple of staff members who have a different degree that's not called a master's, but is equivalent. But generally speaking, for the role, the minimum degree is the master's degree, and then there's the distinction between registered and non-registered staff. We should mention that that some of the staff members that we have a PhD in psychology as well. So maybe that should be added to this piece as well, not just list the minimum of the degree. I think that maybe the asterisk that Maria was pointing out is was kind of like that was more like it should have been a footnote regarding the need for supervision of non-registered members, because not all of the master's level practitioners are licensed, and some of them require supervision by a member of the College of Psychologists.
Okay, yeah, that I see what you're saying. So maybe just looking at how to maybe.
Yeah, it should be reworded. Yeah. It's not very.
When I see an asterisk, I go looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's all.
Yeah, yeah, we should reword that.
Rhonda, you want to comment?
I'm just curious why that needs to even be mentioned in terms of the supervision of the professional. It's up to you. What do you think, Oliver?
Well, it's kind of like the thing is that, you know, we're the only profession among the other professionals compared to the social workers and speech language. I mean, speech language, there's CDAs, but that's a specific role. But we're the only profession where over years, we had difficulties attracting people who are licensed, and I think there should be some way for parents to understand that that some of the assessors that are seeing their kids require a member of the college to supervise their work, so that they're not confused. Like, for example, right now during the pandemic, when we do parent meetings, those people who are not licensed, I'm on the call on a Teams meeting with the parents to fulfill the role of communicating the controlled act of communicating a diagnosis. So I think though we can do a better job of explaining that, looking forward into the future, I hope that we'll get to a point where all of our staff are registered staff. We're working into that direction, but I think in terms of transparency for parents, and I think that this plan is an instrument for transparency. I think it is important to explain that to parents as well. We do it again when we do our informed consent interview, but there's a little bit of an odd split in our group in terms of the different levels of certification.
Thanks, Oliver. Okay, let's keep going. We'll keep going. Okay, any comments on this page? Yep, go ahead, Maria.
Sorry, it was actually on page 44, I think. We're going too fast now.
Okay.
No, just starting the second paragraph, and I don't know if I'm not understanding, but it says a member of the board's psychological staff will obtain informed consent from the parents after receiving assigned consent through the special education resource teachers or department heads. So is there two consents that are happening, or is that just awkwardly worded? I don't.
That's correct, Maria. So the process, which I hope to be able to show one day in my ever postponed presentation to SEAC. The SE1 form is the form that gets signed by the parent after talking to the principal. So that's the start of the process when, or the point in the process when the school team has brought a student's profile forward to the special education consultant and has said, we would like to put Johnny's profile forward for a psychoeducational psychological assessment. At that point, the parent signs the consent form. So the kid then goes on to the waiting list, which is hopefully shorter and shorter. And then when we're ready to start the process of the assessment, we then, from a psychological professional point of view, have to do our informed consent, meaning we have to explain to the parent what it actually means, because up to that point they have read the description, they've talked to the principal, but they haven't heard it from the professional themselves. It's our responsibility as a professional to make sure that the parent understands what the assessment entails. And also we then go over things like limitations to confidentiality, the right to withdraw consent, next steps, sharing of information, possible outcomes of the assessment, including diagnoses or recommendations for identification, and so on and so forth. So that second part, that informed consent, is a much wider or much more intense an extension of that form that initially gets signed. The parent could, at this point, when we explain it, and it occasionally happens when we go through the content of the assessment, say, oh, now that I understand what this actually entails, I don't want this assessment. Or they could say, I feel my child has made progress and we don't need to require this assessment. So there is two stages or two parts to the consent.
Thanks, Oliver.
Yes, thank you. That helps.
Was there any more comments for this page? Okay, we'll keep going. Okay, page 46. Oh, sorry. Yep, go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you. I had a question about the CCAT screening section. So for the accommodations, the first bullet does say that the students with an IEP accommodations outline can be followed. Do we not currently have students who are not on an IEP but do receive reading interventions such as Empower, Alexia, or those students who just aren't reading at the benchmark level? Wouldn't they be entitled to accommodations?
Camilla, you want to take that, or Wendy, you want to take that?
I'm just trying to understand the question, Jessica. You're asking, so for the CCAT screening test,
yes.
Do students
So
without an IEP?
CCAT screening, one of the batteries is the verbal. So the third bullet addresses the ELL learners, that if they're ELL learners, they don't need to write that section. But correct. Students who are on an IEP, if they already have either scribing or someone reading their text to them, that they'll be entitled to same accommodations for the section. But what about those students who are not readers, they're not decoders, not on an IEP, but are receiving such accommodations throughout the regular day, typically? Like, wouldn't they get the same accommodations? Because the first bullet only provides for the IEP students.
I'll call on Oliver. Jessica, it's an excellent question. I'm going to say I don't know the answer to that. I would have assumed what you're assuming, but possibly for the CCAT there might be some different expectations. Oliver, do you have an answer to that?
Oops, sorry. Generally speaking, yes, we can provide accommodations to students, whether it's ESL or other reasons, particularly for the verbal component of the test that you mentioned. The issue with that test is that it is a standardized test. So so the more we alter the requirements of the test, the less meaningful the score becomes. And then we have to ask the question too, what is the purpose of the test for the student? I mean, the main purpose that we're using it for is for the stage 1 gifted screening. And we also ask principals to always kind of look at the results and use it. It can be used as a kind of a warning sign if there's unusual patterns that a student has. Is there something that tells us that we should take a closer look for the student? But if we have a student who already is identified, who is already Spec Ed student, all that will tell us is that the student has needs in this area. So the question is, why are we doing the test? Like, what is the change in programming? That it's a cognitive test. It's not an achievement test. It's not a test that kind of guides our programming in terms of IEP development. So yes, we can provide accommodation, but we also have to balance that with. We have to remember that this is all grade 4 students that are taking that test at the same time, and so we have to make decisions about how many students we can accommodate. And for what reasons we're doing that. So it's an individual decision, and certainly we are flexible. We just need to kind of be thinking through what the reason is. We also have some students that get exempt from the test because if the student can't follow at the test in the group format, we do sometimes allow students to write it separately, but that those are all decisions that are made on an individual basis.
You're absolutely right. We always have to think about the purpose of the test, and it is a cognitive test. And I guess you are right. I think we need a statement in here that a decision can be made individual basis, and keeping in mind the purpose of the test, that we shouldn't the result be hindered by the child's inability to decode if their cognitive ability could exist beyond the certain threshold. So maybe staff can revisit the wording here that it's not just the students with an IEP, but on an individual basis. I don't know what the best wording could be off the hat here, but I think it definitely needs to be rewritten.
Through you, Madam Chair, if I may could speak. So yes, Jessica, we will look at that. I'll have our team look at the language. We'll review with Oliver to make sure that the language is both clear for parents, but also reflects the philosophy that he's just shared about the validity of the test and the purpose of the test, the assessment.
Yeah, Maria, go ahead.
So this is by far not my area of expertise, so I'm not sure if I'm fully understanding everything here, but I just want to be careful. I think we need to be careful to make sure that our processes will allow 2E students to be also have their giftedness identified, if that's the case. So I would hope that if accommodations are needed, maybe the reason that students need those accommodations is because a learning disability is getting in the way. And sometimes this assessment, I think, is the only way that we can figure out that, oh, geez, right? They're actually gifted and they have this other thing going on, whatever it may be. So I just kind of want to make that point because I'm not sure if I was fully kind of understanding that discussion. So,
I think to Maria's point, I think the important thing is to know that we're not making any decisions based on this group test, right? Because it's a group test. So particularly like we even don't we try to avoid having a student. Let's say we have a student who may be possibly is on the spectrum, has ASD, or has there may be a possibility that the student, or we know that the student has ADHD or learning problems. We wouldn't send them, or send them is maybe not right word. We wouldn't do the second stage individual gifted screening with a short form of the WISC, because that doesn't give us the full information about the needs of the student. For those students, we would do a full assessment that really looks at all of the aspects of their learning profile and their overall social emotional profile that we need to know. So we would never make a decision based on a test. However, like you mentioned, if we see that a student is struggling on this test, maybe on specific areas of the test, more than we would expect, or there's an unusual profile, that would kind of be an indicator to do further investigation. My comment is really just to say that this is a screening measure. It's not a decision-making tool. So yes, we definitely need to consider the information, particularly if we have a student, like you mentioned, who may have multiple exceptionalities, and maybe it would be an example where we see, wow, this student looks to us like a gifted student, but he's struggling on this test. So why is that? Then we have to really look at, okay, how can we explore that further with, but then we would do individual measures where we have a one-on-one.
Maria, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, I just want, and again, I may not be fully kind of understanding everything here, but so Oliver, you're saying that no decision is made based on this test, but except for the decision to proceed to stage 2, I think, and I guess we know there's limitations with this test. I think that's not a secret, but I mean, sometimes this test even misses kids that are just gifted with no other things going on. So I think it is important to get, this the screening as accurate as it can be, and try and catch as many kids as we can. So again, I just want to leave the comments because again, it's not my area of expertise, but I just want to caution on those points, I guess.
Yeah, so maybe just as a response in terms of the group that you mentioned of kids who are just gifted, we do collect data. We have data from I would say about 14 years of data for each gifted screening. And so we're monitoring the rates of identification. So on a kind of a group basis, we're monitoring the outcomes from that first stage to the second stage of testing. And we generally, for example, our cutoff criterion for the stage 1 is also lower than for the gifted identification. So our cutoff for moving from stage 1 to stage 2 based on a CCAT is the 95th percentile. So we're trying to cast a wide net, if you will. And then in addition, we also look at individual scores and individual profiles. So every year, if there is a student where they may not have performed on the test as expected, or there's unusual patterns, which this instrument allows. It has some kind of some validity indicators that can tell us, let's say, because it's a group test, if the child was not answering all the questions, or there's a random responding because they kind of missed a question and lost track. All those things can be looked at. So there's several mechanisms in place to avoid exactly what you're concerned about, that we're missing a student on the stage 1 of that screening.
Thanks, Oliver. Jessica, I know you had your hand up, but Wendy, did you want to comment to this before I go to Jessica?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, thank you so much. Just wanting to reassure SEAC too that, and I know you've heard me say this many times before, we're so fortunate in Halton Catholic to be just a right-sized board. I wish sometimes you could see a little bit of what goes on in our department. So a couple of things. Our consultants run board teams about 5 times a year, so it would be very rare for a student by grade 4 to have gotten by us if there were any issues with reading, because by then we would have done KTs, we would have had many academic assessments, and we would be already supporting that student. This is by no means the first time we catch these students. In addition, once we launch the test, Oliver and I, our offices are literally across the hall. We are in touch all the time. We get people from ESL services coming over to talk to us, representing those students if they're ELL learners. Our consultants are constantly checking in with us. School certs contact Oliver directly about certain students they're worried about in terms of accommodations. I just want to reassure folks that it's a very fluid process for us, and because of our size, we are able to keep in touch with one another, and we have many discussions through this process. So although we're not perfect, I can tell you we are probably doing a pretty decent job of capturing these students. And as Oliver said, we lowered our threshold to the 95th percentile to ensure if there were any students who might be just around the fringe, we would bring them into the fold and go ahead and do the second level of screening. So I hope that reassures folks that though not perfect, we have a lot of mechanisms in place to capture these kids.
Thanks so much, Wendy. Jessica, you had your hand up for page 46.
46, yes. Before I get to the question, to Oliver and Wendy, thank you. You kind of answered my questions, but by no means was I trying to say that you are not doing the or providing the accommodations. I think there's a significant gap between what the plan states and what the practice is. So if you can close that gap by change the wording, I think that would be great. And thank you for all that you do. Now, Oliver, you did sort of answer my question. My next question was regarding the criteria on this, what the student learning profile or characteristics and the threshold of CCAP moving on. Is that something that the board does not want to articulate in the plan?
No, I would say that the reason why the 95th percentile for the stage 1 is not in there is because we're in the process of reviewing the data. I'm working with research to include the data from the last couple of years to currently review and make sure that that threshold makes sense. So like it was said before, that the issue with the with the Spec Ed annual plan is sometimes, as we write it, we're already in the process of kind of revising and reviewing our decision making. So by the time this plan was written, the cutoff was higher, and then we actually looked at some specific cases of students, and based on our data, we decided to again cast the net wider. The process is a tricky one too, because when you think about it, when we do the stage 2 gifted screening, although it's just a short test and an hour, it means that our psychology staff basically drop everything to do this screening. So this year we screened 120 students. That's how many students we see, just for the purposes of the gifted screening. So on the one hand, we don't want to miss any students, and on the other hand, we also don't want to have too many false positives. By that I mean we don't want to test a lot of students who then don't meet the criteria in stage 2, because in terms of economic
Oliver,
reasons.
thank you, but I don't want to waste too much time of yours or the other members. That wasn't my question. I was just simply asking, is that not something you want to articulate? Not necessarily the threshold of 95th, because that could change. You're right, absolutely. The board changes. Like even my school board, they change every year. We have different pathways, but they just state we have 1, 2, 3 pathways. We look at strength and student profiles. I was just asking if you wanted to change the wording here, because you did mention something that's very important, that the certs do look at the students' learning profiles, not strictly based on the scores.
Oh, okay.
Okay, are we good with this page? Jessica, are you good with that? Thank you, Oliver. Oh, Maria, you got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I just kind of following up on Jessica's question and comments, and just there's a couple of places where I feel like a little bit more information might be helpful. And I know even for me, I still don't have a good grasp on some of this. I feel this is an area of weakness for me, and trying to help parents when I don't really kind of have the answers myself. So maybe, and I'll just comment. So one is this point about what's the criteria for moving to stage 2, and if it does move every year, maybe just a little description of kind of how that's determined or something, I don't know. And also under stage 2, it talks about completing stage 2 screening through individual administration of the WISC-5, but I'm assuming it's not the full WISC that's done, because I don't think you could do 120 in a month. So just maybe what exactly is done there. And also with respect to the 98th percentile, is that overall, or is that certain measures? I know every board is different in how they do that, so that might be helpful to know. And then in the last paragraph, it talks about, so the open houses take place in May, and information about programming and placement options can be provided at any time by the homeschool cert. So this is, I think, the process that replaced the information night. I would like at some point, and I don't want, like, I know I'm conscious of time, I would like at some point to kind of revisit that process. But in the meantime, I think it's important that the information about the options are given not at any time. And I'm sure this is what's actually happening, but maybe to clarify in the plan, that information is given well ahead of the open houses, so parents can decide whether that's something they might be interested in, so they can make sure they attend. And I think that's pretty much it for that page. And then I do have one thing for the next page if there's nothing else on the page.
Okay, so I just have, Oliver says the criterion is a score in the extremely high range at or above the 90th percentile on either the full scale IQ score or the general ability index. Just a comment.
So that would be great. Like maybe we could put that in the plan. So because again, I know some boards, and again, I don't know the specifics offhand, but I know some boards do it differently. So
Okay.
That's helpful for us to know.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so next, was it this page? Sorry, Maria, I'm losing. Is it this page you had a comment or?
Yeah, I had one comment on page 47. If no one else has anything on 46, I can just get that out of the way.
Okay.
So just at the top where it says all private psych assessments are independently reviewed by the HTDSP psychology department. So maybe just a little bit understanding what exactly they're reviewing for, what that process. I don't know if it's described after that. Hold on. Anyway, just kind of elaborating on what they're looking for when they.
Yes, it's further down in the plan.
Okay. Maybe I wrote my note too soon. Sorry.
I think it may be like, I think page 57 or so.
Oh, okay. So maybe it would be good to have it here as well.
Yeah, some things are a little bit scattered.
Right. Yeah, but and just speaking as a parent, like I can remember I had mine done privately and I brought it in and I thought I was kind of done and it was like, oh, it has to go to the psychology department. So that would be just helpful to be able to explain to parents, you know, why that's happening.
Looks like
happening. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Great. Does anybody else have anything on that page before we go to 48? Okay, speech and language assessments. Anybody have anything on this one? I know Rhonda's dropped off. I don't know, Rick, if there's anything from voice perspective. Okay, we can keep going. Okay, behavior assessments, anything on these? Consultation? Okay. Assessment referral process. Yeah, Jessica, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Sorry, thank you. I just have a quick question. Just because I'm used to a different kind of system, maybe you could answer this for me because you have experience in both boards. I'm learning that Halton Catholic does not have in-school psychologists or SLPs, that even referrals are done through the board level. Is that right, Wendy?
So you're right, I've been in 2 boards, and so in Dufferin Peel, psychologists and speech language pathologists attend team meetings, as you know, Jessica, and IPRCs. We don't so much here. We do on a case-by-case basis, but not in a formalized way. And so it's through board team, Jessica, that the students are presented, and it would be the special education consultant who would approve students to go forward for a speech and language or a psych ed assessment. Yes.
Got it. Thank you. Just out of curiosity, which method do you find is more effective? I would just like to know.
Ours here in Halton Catholic, all the way. I have to be honest, our team is so busy working directly with students. They aren't in a lot of meetings. They go to meetings as required, but I can tell you that they are extremely efficient. That's why our wait list is so much lower. I mean, when I left Dufferin Peel, the wait list was 3 years, Jessica. We had it down to almost 9 months before COVID-19 hit.
Yeah, we've cut up too, but I'm just curious. Is it the size of the board? You think? I'm just trying to think will be more efficient. But thank you, Wendy. That's good to know.
No, and speech, same thing. Those people are little worker bees and they get a lot of work done, I have to say. Thanks.
Maria, you have your hand up for page 51.
Yes, sorry. Okay, under assessment referral prioritizing criteria. So it says the psychology department, second bullet, reviews the wait times across families of schools regularly. So do our wait lists by family of schools, or like is there one wait list for each family of schools, or is there a wait list for the whole board? Because I know that's something that varies across boards too, and I don't know how we do it here.
Can I speak to this?
Yes, please.
So in technical terms, our waitlist is like a SharePoint list that can be sorted in different ways, but the list has all the students on it, and so we can sort by family of schools, we can sort by school, individual school. The psychology staff, their itinerants, they have a number of schools assigned, approximately like 5 schools on average, but it allows us to sort the referrals and also look at them together, so we can see whether, let's say, Bishop Reading, a family of schools, the wait times would be longer than in other areas. Now we have to work within the framework of the collective agreement, but our staff members have demonstrated extreme flexibility to say that, you know, if there is, for whatever reason, that there's a bunch of referrals that came in from one school, and there's a bit of an unequal wait time, that we can make sure that there's no differences, no vast differences between different areas or regions or families of schools.
Thank you.
Diane, you had your hand up for page 51.
Yes, the situation on page 51 that Oliver was just talking about. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little bit, it's a little bit low, Diane, but.
Okay, I'll try and be louder. With regard to the 3 to 15 months, and I know Oliver was talking a little bit about Bishop Reading perhaps being a longer period of time, unless I'm misunderstanding. Could you just re-clarify that, please, Oliver, as to why Bishop Reading family of schools would be longer?
I apologize. I must have been unclear in what I said. I didn't mean to imply that Bishop Reading was longer. It was just a purely hypothetical example.
Okay, it was probably me, not you. No problem.
No, sorry. That was I just picked a random family of schools out of it. Like I said, the differences between families of schools would be no more than maybe 1 or 2 months of difference. And as I said, every month we meet and we review the wait times, and if there is a difference, we respond to it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Oliver.
Great. Thanks, Diane. Thanks, Oliver. So we're at 8:28. I think our plan was to go until 8:30 tonight, and that leaves us in a really good position to be able to finish the rest of this off for our June meeting and get the comments to staff just after June 15th. So I just wanted, before we finish off this page, is there anything else on this page?
Sorry, I just had one quick question considering that we're ending here.
Okay.
And again, maybe it's just my misunderstanding of this, but where it says wait periods for assessment, 3 to 15 months. So what does that range mean? Like the student that's been waiting the longest is at 15 months and the shortest is 3? Is that, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but
yeah, that,
I'm not understanding
sorry,
that.
if you want, do you want me to answer that?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, that was a range that we put in at the time when we wrote that, meaning that like right now, the referrals, the wait time would be approximately 9 months, but now it's a bit longer because of the pandemic. But the 3 months would be also that if we're looking at the criteria for prioritization, it would mean that if there is a referral that we have to prioritize, it can be that we see a student after 3 months on the waiting list, for example, or even shorter, actually. Let's say we just put a student on the waiting list, but it's maybe, let's say it's April, and there's a question of whether a placement in a classroom, in a class would be appropriate, but we need the results of the assessment to know whether the student is a good fit for the class. Then that student would be with the approval of the superintendent, would be prioritized. So there is a variation according to needs. Or for example, if there's a question of access to a program like Woodview and other programs, for example, those are cases where the wait time is shorter.
Okay, thank you. I think I just was having a brain blip on that one.
Is that good, Maria?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, I think we got a lot of ground covered tonight. So we ended up at where? What page are we? So, okay, so that's pretty good. I think we go to what, page 69, and then we have the appendix. So we should be able to get that done for next meeting. I feel confident that that will work. So if everybody's okay with it, just being conscientious of time, we can move on to item 7.2. Okay, perfect. And thank you. Thanks as well to staff who stuck around and helped us answer some questions. So that is extremely appreciated. Your clarifications and insight are always valuable as we review these things. So, okay, I know that Andrea is probably working on getting that up. Sorry, Andrea. But while you're doing that, I think everyone was sent them anyways. Item number 7.2 is the 2020-2021 SEAC meeting dates. Thanks, Glenda. Thanks, Patricia. Sorry, just seeing your notes there. Did anybody have any questions at all about the, there they are, thanks Andrea. Did anybody have any questions at all about the dates for our next school year? And hopefully they'll all be in person. Fingers crossed. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I will move on to 8. We'll go to 8.1 if there was no questions on this, and that is over to you, Superintendent Cipriano, for your superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, I'd like to share that our trustee this evening, Marvin Dwart, is going to, as part of his trustee report, will share a document that we created in Special Education Services about our positions of consultant and itinerants at the board office level, and he'll explain that report a little bit more in detail. But I do want to share with you that Andrea Hughes, my assistant, will send that full report to you all by the end of this meeting. We also last week completed our EA allocation process. Our special education consultants, our EA managers, our research department, and led by Wendy, spent the whole day running the algorithm and completing all the SIP additions as well as the narratives. I think I'd mentioned this before. We had over 900 independence rubrics to review and to plug into the algorithms. Our principals were given their allocations today, or actually, sorry, last week they were given their allocations. And we have our EA managers will be in touch with our principals to work out the details about the individuals at each of those schools and the personnel. We're also in the process of bringing in all of our external reports for our incoming secondary students from other school boards. So what that means is we have actually quite a large number of grade 8s to grade 9s that come from other boards outside of our elementary Catholic schools in grade 8, many coming from the Halton District School Board. And with those students in special education, they submit some external reports. So those students are receiving special education services in their elementary schools, and they, as part of the registration process, they submit those external reports. Well, those reports happen to be in our schools over this last few months and sitting in department heads' offices, in filing cabinets. And so we created a process whereby this week, our school department heads will be meeting with their principals to collect all of those external reports. They will be packaging them up, and our facilities department will be traveling to all of our secondary schools on June the 1st, on Monday, to collect those reports and then deliver them to our chiefs in order for our chiefs to distribute them to their personnel to review those reports. About 3 weeks ago, we completed the same process for elementary schools for our students, our current students, who had external reports, assessments, speech and language assessments, psych ed assessments, some medical documents. And so we had to get a hold of those. And again, we created a process where we brought these reports, we collected them from our elementary schools using our certs, our principals, and our facilities department to get them to our chiefs, and our chiefs distribute them to their staff. And those reports are being reviewed as we speak over the last couple of weeks, and decisions are being made and communication is happening with our schools and our families. As mentioned a few times, we're having our virtual open houses for our gifted regional classes. We have 2 coming up this week, one in Burlington on May 27th at 11 and one for Oakville on May 27th at 1 o'clock. Our ABC reps have been invited to both. I believe they will be in attendance to both, so Marie and Jessica will be part of those as well. We have our structured teaching class and essential skills class. Virtual open houses were held on May 19th and May 12th, and our virtual meeting for both our CLC and structured teaching class were held on May the 25th and 21st in Oakville. Just a reminder, so we had an essential skills class at Holy Family for a number of years. We didn't have the student population to have the class last year. We're reopening that site, but now we're moving the site to St. John Paul II, and that is scheduled for May 26th at 2 p.m., that open house for those families. Denise Colley, our Chief Speech and Language Pathologist, will be co-presenting Launching Telepractice in Canadian School Boards SLP Department at the 2020 International eHealth Pediatric Summit. We're really proud of Denise for doing that on behalf of us. And also from our SEA department, we have partnered with LearnStyle to offer live virtual coaching sessions for students who had unfinished coaching sessions prior to March break. These sessions, these sessions will take place on our Teams platform that we're using tonight. It's delivered by LearnStyle Technology Coach, but a CERT or the classroom teacher will be in attendance the entire time so they can support the student following those sessions. Those teachers and CERTs are not required to participate in the sessions, but they will be present to support the student and the LearnStyle coach if needed. Jen Thompson, our consultant for SEA, met with every single school individually over the last week or so to review eligible students to discuss the appropriateness of the training and review the process. Sessions were set to begin this week. The sessions consisted of 2 parts. The first part was triage, intended to support students and families accessing AT programs or to answer technology-related questions that may be arising as students were accessing these virtual platforms, and continuing with training that began prior to March break. That was the second part. And LearnStyle will be running 3 staff training sessions for a deeper dive into read and write so they can support students at home. These sessions will include a beginner, intermediate, and advanced level, and those dates are going to be determined later on by next week. From our CYC department, all of our CYC deployment has been completed for next school year. Schools have been notified of their CYC deployment and principals have been notified. Our CYCs continue to support teachers in virtual classrooms, delivering Tier 1 programs such as Kelso's Choice, Zones of Regulation, Healthy Transition, and Mind Up. And our CYCs are continuing to accept new referrals on a case-by-case basis. Our Chief of Mental Health is attending meetings for School Mental Health Ontario. These are happening virtually. I've been in attendance as well. Many superintendents across the province, along with our chiefs, have been in attendance to those meetings. And then finally, the last point, as discussed at our last SEAC meeting, Andrea Hughes will be sending you, by the end of this meeting tonight, our kindergarten questionnaire. I think it was brought up as part of our SEAC review plan about what does that questionnaire look like. We've received permission to share that with you. That kindergarten questionnaire goes to all parents of kindergarten students. And just a reminder that the questionnaire, many of the questions are directed by the ministry for information that they track as well. So it's there for your information. It's really not there for us to change or to have any input on, but it was requested that you'd like to see a copy of that. So we'll get that to you by the end of tonight. And that is my report, Madam Chair. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. And for a second there, I thought I was on mute the entire time. I just realized I'm not.
And we wouldn't have said anything. Thanks, Superintendent Cipriano. Does anybody have any questions for Camilo? No, I think all good. I do have to go back though. Director Daly had his hand up and I skipped right over him. So the floor is yours, Director Daly.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I don't want to throw off SEAC dates, but Monday, March 29th, 2021, I think that's the Monday of Holy Week. I'm not sure if that impacts on your dates, but I thought I would just let you know.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll take a look at that then. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Pat. We'll have to change that then. Thank you.
Okay, up next we have 8.2, which is psychological assessments, wait time update, and we have Oliver Froise for that update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as you know, the pandemic has had an impact on our ability to start new assessments. We've mainly worked on finishing up and collecting outstanding data and from open assessments. This pandemic hit at a moment where we were just coming out of the gifted screening and had started with regular assessments. Our wait time at that point was 9 months, but has now increased until such time that we will restart doing assessments and attacking the wait list again. At this point, we have 370 cases on the wait list. We have completed 165. We have 205 students on the wait list that have not been seen or the assessment has not been started. And we also have completed 120 gifted screenings. I want to add a couple of smaller numbers just as an illustration. I'm just going to pull those up. When we were in a shutdown, so the The referrals that we were looking at to see next were from May 2019. That was 5 referrals. And then the next 10 referrals would have been from June 2019, and then 1 from August. And then the subsequent referrals were from September 2019 or younger. So we were in a good position to actually see students all referred in the current school year. So we hope to be able to hopefully catch up. We're now in a situation where we obviously have some serious considerations to make in terms of how do we access students, how do we conduct assessments, what are other factors to consider in terms of mental health, the delays and impact of the pandemic on their learning and their social emotional functioning. How can we use our standardized instruments, and so on and so forth. But that's something that we're going to take on going forward, and hopefully we will be able to get back to the wait time that we had achieved and beyond, and reduce further.
Great, thank you, Oliver. Is there any questions for Oliver on that? No? Okay, thanks again, Oliver.
Thank you.
We're going to move to 8.3, which is our trustee report with Trustee Dort.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the last board meeting, there was a presentation on roles and responsibilities of itinerants and consultants in program services. Superintendent Cipriano talked a little bit about it. I'll pick a paragraph from here, and I think Superintendent Cipriano is going to distribute this later. So there are 6 special ed consultants who act as project managers, overseeing every facet of special education in schools under their responsibilities. Ensuring all legal requirements are met, consultants act as a liaison between parents and their children, schools, to help build and maintain a positive and collaborative working relationship. In addition, there is one SEA consultant who oversees all aspects of assistive technology and equipment claims and all associated training. The individual co-leads the oversight of the IEP engine for the board. Supporting their work are 10 itinerant teams made of 1 CERT and 1 EA who support 5 or 6 schools, providing scheduled direct weekly support to students and staff. Much of this work is organized into specific areas of response. In addition to 10 itinerant teams, the board employs 3 itinerant teachers for students who are deaf or hard of hearing, and 2 itinerant teachers for those who are blind and low vision. These teachers provide unique skills and direct support to students with these exceptional needs. It is the philosophy of staff to respond as quickly as possible with student needs by providing them with timely assessment, academic intervention, equipment, assistive technology, behavioral and mental health supports to move them towards their unlimited potential. I must say that our consultants, itinerants, and program services are doing a fantastic job as far as special ed is concerned. I must thank them for the good work they're doing. You will have this report later today. Policy II-13 educational psychological assessment of individual students was in the review cycle, and it has been passed by the Board of Trustees. Extended school closure and distance learning. Again, this was a report presented by Director Daly, and I'll just pick up a couple of things as regards to special ed. This report is available on the board website. So Director Daly presented a very detailed and comprehensive report covering all teams, mental health, wellness, and community supports, deaf, hard of hearing teams, blind, low vision teams, SLP, CDA, psychology, behavior, and analysts and educational assistants. We talked about all these groups. And I quote from the report as regards special education. This period of school closure is challenging for students. perhaps even more for students with special education needs. During this period, we continue to provide support for our students through our special education department, which includes special education resources, teachers, CERTs, EAs, social workers, child and youth counselors, CYCs, speech and language pathologists, etc. So this is a very comprehensive and detailed report of the ongoing work being done by senior staff and staff. And for full details, it's very interesting, and I would encourage everybody to go through this. The details, as I mentioned before, is on our board website, and the entire presentation is on our YouTube channel. My report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you, Trustee Duarte. Is there any questions at all on the trustee report? Okay, we are going to move to SEAC discussion. So I wanted to just do a quick reminder for anyone that is still interested in participate. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Maria.
That's okay. I can go after you. I just wanted to make a note. So that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. I just have a really quick comment. It's just about the RFP committee for the school uniforms. So currently we've had Maria and Paul step forward to participate in that committee. So if there was anyone else, I don't have it in front of me. I believe it was we had, I think, 3 from SEAC that we could take, but if there was anybody else that was interested, we just need to know as soon as possible because we need to forward those names to Superintendent Crowell for that RFP. So yeah, thanks, Maria. I believe it was 3 as well. So we currently have 2. So anybody else wanting to participate in that RFP committee for school uniform, please just let Andrea or myself know so we can add you to that list. And that was all that I had under SEAC discussion. So Maria, you wanted to go ahead?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. One is just with respect to the budget process. And I believe that Camillo might have talked about at the last meeting what was happening with that, and I think I missed it. So I'm just not sure because we have 1 meeting left and we haven't done any of that. I don't know where everything stands. I don't think the ministry has given the numbers yet, but again, we do have a requirement to review that in the financial statements. And so I don't know if the ministry has given any guidance on how that's supposed to happen this year, etc. So that was my one question. Do you want me to wait to ask my second?
Yeah, let's get that one answered. I'll have Superintendent Cipriano answer that. But yes, we haven't received GSN unless something miraculously happened in the last 3 hours. But I don't believe it's been received yet. So Camillo, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, Maria, you're absolutely right. I can confirm we haven't received any information around the GSNs. We have no new information, and we've been given no direction from the ministry regarding SEAC obligations to report on financials in this current year. So I don't have much more to share. What I can do, we have been in communication with our finance department, our superintendent of finance, Aaron Lofts, and he's aware. And we had several presentations planned for this year before we went into this distance learning environment, and he's aware of those obligations and those requirements. We will reach out to Aaron again, and possibly by our final SEAC meeting, we may have some information around, generally speaking, GSNs. Again, I don't know if it will look like what it's looked like in the past, but we'll try our very best to try and bring some kind of financial information back to SEAC in June if we have the information from the ministry. But like I said, we've been given really no direction from the ministry about the obligations of SEAC and how they might not be met this year because we haven't had this information.
So if I can just follow up on that. So I understand all that. I guess I'm just wondering, and again, in this process of reviewing the plan, that there are the 2 pieces. So one is being consulted on the budget, and the other is reviewing the financial statements, which would be, the results of the current year. So I'm thinking, is that something that could come at the next meeting, that piece? Like what this past year has looked like, which is always helpful to inform budgeting as well.
Yeah, sure. We will make that suggestion to our superintendent of finance if he could bring something with regard to a financial reporting on this current year, as you've suggested, and as is one of the requirements. Again, and we can definitely work with finance to bring something forward. Again, because we do have quite a few people that are fairly new to this process, to SEAC, that you're absolutely right. It's probably good information for everyone just to kind of get their minds around what the budget looks like from a special education perspective.
Thank you. So if I can lead into my next question.
Yeah, go ahead. Thanks, Camilo. Go ahead, Maria.
Thank you, Camilo. So at the last meeting, there was a question about summer learning, and I know that since then the ministry's come out with some information and the board has come out for registration for high school courses. One of the things that I noticed in the minister's most recent announcements was that there would be an opportunity for grade 8 students to earn grade 9 credits over the summer. So I just want to make sure that we're going to be offering that here at Halton Catholic, and that grade 8 students are aware of that opportunity, because I know in the past that has been a bit of an issue. So that might be a question for Director Daly. I don't know.
Pat, do you want to take a crack at that? Sure.
Yeah,
the
ability of students in grade 8 moving to grade 9 to take a reach ahead credit is really nothing new. It would be new for our board, but that's existed in many boards in Ontario. So the minister wasn't really announcing anything new or mandating anything new from that regard.
So sorry, does that mean it's not going to be available again at Halton Catholic?
It means we haven't made that determination yet.
Okay, so I'm just wondering when that would happen, because we're coming to the end of the school year, and I do think that would be. I know that the ministry refers to it in one of their documents, and I don't have it on hand right now as something that I think should be available. So, just wondering if there's any thought.
Yeah, and like I said, we are thinking about that. In terms of the ministry announcement, the minister or the ministry made a number of announcements. Some of them we're still waiting for details. One of them being around funding, not necessarily for that program in and of itself. So we've had about a week to look at that. So we're still looking at it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Director Daly. Thank you, Maria, for the questions. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to bring up during the SEAC discussion before I move on to our next item? No? Okay, so item 10 is our next agenda, and that is scheduled for Monday, June the 15th. So our plan during that meeting will be to finalize our Spec Ed plan review, take a look at some presentations that we've discussed as trying to maybe squeeze in for that last meeting. We sometimes do a year-end review, but I don't know how that last meeting is going to look. So we'll go through it and take a look at what presentations perhaps we haven't been able to get to and see what we can put on the agenda. And we also have a presentation happening at that meeting from Denise Colley with respect to an Aaron Oak, sorry, I believe, Denise, is that in conjunction with someone from Aaron Oak Kids?
No, I think you're just going to have me, but we can always get back to you. Yeah, just
Okay, so it'll be just Denise, which is fine. Denise will be discussing the school-based rehab services with an update, which I think will be extremely timely moving into the new school year. So that's what we have on next agenda. Is there any questions at all around that? Okay. So our next item is adjournment. So I need a resolution for absenteeism. So be it resolved that Helena Carabella, Andrea Locorici, Marika Murphy, Yvonne Taylor be excused. Could I get a motion for absenteeism? Maria moves it. Thank you. Do I have anyone to second it?
I'll second it.
Sorry, who's that?
It's Nancy, sorry.
Oh, thanks, Vance. I'm not good at voice recognition yet. So thank you. So the last item we have then is I need a motion to adjourn before I move into our closing prayer. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Me again, Nancy.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Maria. Sorry.
Well, I don't mean to be nitpicky or anything, but I think Nancy's an alternate, right?
No, I'm not. I'm a primary.
Who are the two primary trustees then? I thought Marvin was. Is that wrong?
Yeah, Marvin and no, I think they increased it to a third, if I'm not mistaken, this last round.
I think that's CPIC, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, that's okay. We can always, I had Rick as well second it. So I can have Rick second the motion for the absenteeism, if we had a concern, and then I can get someone else if they want to put a motion for adjournment.
Marvin.
So thank you, Trustee Dort. Do I have a seconder?
Dan.
Dan, thank you. Okay, so our closing prayer, if I can all have you join me in the sign of our faith, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Blessed are you, O God of all creation. Each day you spread before us the rich and wonderful diversity of the human family created in the divine splendor of your love. Fashioned in your image, you call us to love one another with the same tender care with which you brought us to creation. Each one of us is but one small part of the glory that is you. As we serve the students and families of the Halton Catholic District School Board on the Special Education Advisory Committee, fill us with your grace, guide us with your wisdom, and give us the strength and courage to do your work, so that it may be always said of our every act, God saw that it was good. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So thanks, everyone. We will see you on June the 15th, and we will have some correspondence in between there, I'm sure, and have a great evening, everyone, and stay safe. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, Brenda. Good night. Thanks, everybody.